Hello everyone. So the Quickiebomb Launcher is a weapon that gets talked about a lot, and for I think a lot of people, for a lot of casual players, it's kind of their introduction to using stickies as an offensive tool at all, rather than a strictly defensive one. In sixes, it's actually kind of got a similar reputation as a strictly offensive tool with very limited defensive options. And I wanted to talk about basically what the positives and the negatives are, where it finds a niche in the metagame, and yeah, I guess just those two things. I can't think of a third. So for starters, I did use it for an entire half here, just for the footage. And in using it, oh right, this, I switched my loadout, my class config fired and changed the volume back to standard. Interesting. So I did use it full time. There are some Quickies demos in North America, and pretty much everyone uses it partially, not full time. Because it is a niche weapon that's only strong in certain circumstances and much weaker in others, which we'll get into, of course, later. Now, I will start off by mentioning that Quickies are actually banned in Europe, which happened for a couple of reasons. So, for starters, Europe in general is generally more purist when it comes to whitelist. That community in general just prefers, they lean more on, if you've watched the how to make a metagame video I make, they lean more on the, if a gun is stupid or just doesn't really add anything to the metagame, then why should we include it? Like a weapon being included should be not standard practice if it's not just broken, but more of a privilege if it offers something interesting or unique or fun. So they tend to fall more on that side of things. But also, interestingly enough, in Europe, you see more unlock abuse, where people really try to find those niches and abuse them as much as possible. So a lot of problem weapons that really don't get touched in North America, as far as the whitelist is concerned, just because people don't use it, really take over in Europe. And as a result, they tend to ban stuff more often than in North America. But with that aside, I will talk about why it was banned in a moment. But for now, let's talk about the positives and negatives of the Quickies. So starting off with the positives, the big thing is the faster charge. You are able to output range stickies much faster than you would be able to with anything else, and that does kind of increase your effective range, right? Because you know, people standing in certain distances from a demo are kind of used to only a certain amount of damage being able to come in, you know, how quickly it does, versus on Quickies you can kind of output that damage more, and you are sort of increasing your effective range by doing so. So that faster charge is really nice. The other really big benefit... Oh, I have to sneeze. Can I... Okay, it passed. The other big benefit is actually something that a lot of people wouldn't really think about too much, and it's that Quickies delete other stickies, which is a huge deal, because just being able to destroy stickies from around corners, whether a door is trapped or just in an area of effect, matters a lot, and is one of the reasons why Quickies as a demo are just really annoying to play against, because you can just put up, you know, 3 stickies or something on a doorway, because you have to put multiple just for it to even be a threat, and then the other demo just uses 1 and then clears it, and then it's just like, wow, this sucks for me. And we'll talk about where this ability kind of pushes it over the edge in a bit. But for now, just bear in mind that that's actually like the other really powerful aspect of Quickies. Now, the downsides, the damage output tends to be lower, even though, and let me actually look at the numbers here, even though the actual, it does have a damage bonus on charge stickies. So let us see, up to 35% bonus damage based on charge. I don't know how the math works out, whether that's additive or multiplicative with the overall -15 damage penalty. But overall, you tend to output less damage with this thing, even though I suppose it is feasible for you to be doing more damage than stock with a fully charged sticky. But yeah, the damage penalty tends to be lower. And of course, the big downside is the clip size, right? Having 4 stickies as a demo is just such a downgrade from the full 8. And especially if you're used to stock, it's just terrible. So the way that I was playing this is I kind of just tried to play this game. I tried to play with Quickies essentially just as stock. I wasn't really actively thinking of using the weapon any differently, other than trying to keep in mind that different charge, because, you know, the muscle memory is definitely there for charging stickies with stock, and it's easy to overcharge with Quickies. And you'll notice that I have been and probably will continue to, on occasion, just shoot a sticky at a wall or something right in front of me, because, you know, my muscle memory to start charging a sticky at a certain time for what I'm trying to do in the future ends up being way too early, and it just overcharges and ends up hitting the wall. Yeah, muscle memory can be annoying as far as the charge goes. And on top of that, the fact that you are so low on ammo means that if you try to play with this weapon as if it was stock stickies, it's really not going to work out in your favor. And that's something I kind of learned doing this, because you just don't have that ammo and you have to spend so much more time reloading. Plus the fact that it's so easy to put a sticky out, it just becomes a lot, like, it's so non-committal to use a sticky, because you can throw out a fully charged sticky in like a second. So you tend to be very low on ammo on this weapon a lot of the time. So actually, I looked after this this game, and I think I had something like 94% Quickiebomb damage and just 6% on Iron Bomber, which is insane. Like, that is just so... man, I can't even think words right now. That's just such an insanely high ratio of sticky damage to pipe damage that I probably wasn't getting the full utility out of pipes, just because I was trying to play it like stock stickies to some extent, at least, like, not consciously doing things differently. Still trying to just play as a demo should play, but just with this weapon in mind, and, you know, potentially taking into account that I have like more long-range spam capabilities, etc. But with that, the weapon demanded so much time and attention as far as reloading goes that I just did not find as much time for pipes. A lot of that is on me and how I played it, but I think something that's not on me is just the fact that the weapon absolutely demands more out of you to use. Which is kind of counterintuitive, because you would expect the weapon, like stock stickies, which take so much time to charge, to have more demand to them. But Quickies, like, you really... I don't know, you don't feel like you're going to be switching between them and pipes too often in a fight, and I don't know, they're just very demanding to use. But yeah, that's the downside of the ammo, which is a really big deal, and probably the biggest deal. Because it makes it so that, you know, in a game of competitive, you are going from attacking to defending to pushing to conceding space. And these different states of the game transition between each other sometimes really quickly. And Quickies just fall so short defensively because you only have 4 stickies at any given time. Plus, like if you're just setting up a trap without charging your stickies, which a lot of the time, most of the time, you won't have time to charge stickies for your trap. Oh, there's actually the... wasn't my idea to do the sticky bomb crits. Everyone talks about how good the sticky bomb crits is. I mean, here I got 2 kills, I guess, but I think any, stock would have gotten that medic as well. But in any case, what was I... Man, that really threw off my train of thought. I was talking about time. Oh, yeah, you don't have time to set up charge traps. So your traps are also just going to do less damage because of that damage penalty. Plus, a lot of the time, like, you'd like to set up 4 sticks somewhere and then 4 sticks elsewhere. And your timing in disad when you're trying to set up traps matters a lot. Because you want to get up as good of traps as you can. And any demo, if given, like, unlimited time, could probably set up traps that would drop an enemy medic as they're pushing. But what balances things out is the fact that a lot of the time you don't have, a surplus of time to set up traps with. And you might want to just set up something more passive, kind of where you're standing. Because you need to be standing somewhere safe to get out by the time they push. And quickies just introduce a huge strain on that because not only are you limited in your time just in general, but the fact that you only have 4 stickies loaded possible means that you're even more strained for time because you have to factor in reloading 4 more stickies to get all 8 out. So a lot of the time you're not going to have all 8 stickies out in transition. Like you can see here, I end up getting a kill actually with my first trap, but I'm not even able to get all stickies out by the time they're pushing, and even then I'm still like kind of forward, kind of committed. So defensively this gun just really suffers, and as a result, like, that's the primary reason why people who do use it kind of partially, at least in North America, and that's also the reason why I don't enjoy using it, and a lot of other demos just don't enjoy using it. Even though I'm sure I could find a way to be more effective with it if I actually got some muscle memory down for charging and stuff like that. The fact that it's just so much worse than stock defensively really gimps the weapon for me. So yeah, with that in mind though, and actually one thing I failed to mention earlier with the positives and negatives is it does, the stickies arm faster, which doesn't come into play that much, but I suppose as a defensive option, it essentially means that you can get guaranteed sticky damage on players from a closer range, which can be a nice little defensive utility the weapon has, I suppose. But by and large, it is much worse defensively in a macro sense. So yeah, with that in mind though, what is it good at in the metagame? So we know that kind of it fails when you need to be setting up traps, which is happening a lot of the time. That's, a very important thing for a demo to be doing. But where does it succeed at? What niche does it find? And it kind of finds 2 niches. So the first is probably the... And man, can you imagine if I had more ammo during this fight and could just nuke this demo on point, but instead I'm just like permanently reloading. Oh man. And ironically enough, actually, one of the draws that the quickies have, and one of the niches that it finds, is on mid fights, and particularly like offensively, either a mid fight in which you could theoretically just get a pick really early on. So one such example might be Sunshine mid. Both demos roll out much faster than the rest of their teams, and oftentimes have the time to exchange 1, even 2 stickies before anyone else shows up. And if you're on quickies, which not only makes it so that you can get more guaranteed sticky damage from further away, but also can potentially even do more damage from that range. It is possible for a quickies demo to straight up kill the other team's demo before the mid can even develop. Because, again, Sunshine is a mid where those demos show up early and oftentimes show up a little bit weak as well. So you're going to be more vulnerable to something like that. I suppose you can maybe make the case on Process. I don't really see Quickies on Process mid ever because it is so far away that, you know, even Quickies you're going to be able to just react to in time and get out of the way. But yeah, that's one of the cases. And also you'll see on Snakewater mid as well is like the very common example that, you know, the one Quickies demo I can think of in North America likes to use it pretty much exclusively on Snakewater for those mid fights, because, you know, on a Snakewater mid you are primarily, it's a long range mid, but not like hyper long range, to the point where you're primarily playing for charge sticky damage, as long as like teams are playing it slow. And for that reason, Quickies has a benefit in that, you know, long range spam capability. That being said, I don't want to, you know, overstate how good it is for this, because again, you are limited on damage, and if a mid goes kind of long, then that increased spam from long range is really counteracted by the decreased ammo, and in my opinion you tend to actually do less damage overall because you just don't have that ammo loaded that you want to. So yeah, it kind of trades itself out there, but some people do opt to use it on a mid fight like Snakewater because it has some merit. But of course, if it just goes long, and then yeah, it becomes worse. So for that reason, like I just don't think Quickies are a good weapon to use, even for its strong use cases on mid, just because you are front loading so much damage and just kind of like gambling on being able to do so much early on that it makes up for the fact that you're going to be way less effective long term. And that's just not like a risk or a decision that you really have to make. In particular, when you take into account the fact that with stock stickies, as long as you are good with stickies and like playing with them well, that they're not lacking in long range spam. Like you can, Quickies don't charge, like charged Quickie bombs don't go further than charged stickies. They just charge faster, meaning you can output those charged stickies faster, but you're still gonna be able to hit the same targets with stock. And as long as you're like playing intelligently about how you charge and manage ammo, I don't feel like I'm ever in need of better long range capabilities on a Snakewater mid on stock, for instance. So for that reason, personally, I don't like taking that, I don't like the risk reward that Quickie bombs offer, because a lot of the time it just feels like you can be useless with it, and as long as you're just effective with stock, then I don't see a reason to try and swap that out for something that might just be worse. And when I say might, I mean like, you know, like a lot of the time it will end up being worse, because you know, a lot of the time you aren't going to be able to just hit their demo with 3 stickies or hit their med with 2 charged stickies, and then your team gets to bomb and the mid is over. Like a lot of the time that won't be happening. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it. But I did mention earlier that in Europe these things are banned, and you might be asking like, okay, well, if it's just kind of bad, if it's really bad defensively and even offensively it's just like kind of a little bit better sometimes, then why would it ever get banned in Europe? And we go back to the clearing enemy stickies. So in a stalemate, being able to clear a trap on a doorway and then like walk through that doorway a little bit, or like, you know, being able to clear a trap that your soldier can then sack through or something, that's not unhealthy in my opinion. And actually something Demo does anyway. Like Demo has the unique ability to knock traps from a door without having to peek that door, versus Soldier or Scout, they have to actually commit through the door, or, you know, have an angle through the door in order to shoot back. Demo, you can just air det your sticks in the doorway and it'll knock any traps. So you already have the capability of making traps on doorways much worse. So that's not really something new or novel. It's just a little annoying that the carpet that would exist after the fact now it just doesn't, and suddenly the stickies are just deleted. So that can be a little annoying. But where this sticky deleting capability becomes broken is in pushing last. So when it comes to holding last, it of course all revolves around the point. And what the defending team wants is for the other team's Uber to be as bad as possible and as ineffective as possible, usually with like time-wasting things such as a sentry gun, sometimes a pyro, stuff like that. They want good positioning in a post fight, so they want to establish a side and actually have space with which they can fight. And they, of course, the most important thing of all is they want to stop the other team from capping, and if you can, you want to stop the other team from getting cap time. Because if the other team caps the point like 95%, you can just win off of that by pushing back in, and just it's very difficult to stop a push when there's just a ton of cap time like that. So that's what the defending team wants. And their primary means of stopping teams from capping the point is first with traps on the point. Pretty much any time it's disad as a demo, you should be trapping last. Because any amount of time that you can stall that point, either by forcing their scout to start shooting your sticks and then getting on it, or at the very least just stopping them from holding W onto the point and capping, it matters a lot. And then after your traps are cleared, oh, and this demo's up, we can quickly just load another one, although I'm going to be closing things off here soon, I guess. So after the traps are dealt with, or det, or whatever, then it's up to your soldiers just cycling their bombs. Oh man, you know, maybe you get a little potato soldier gameplay in a pug scrim, whatever. So after the traps are cleared, then you have to worry about your soldiers and then bombs and all that. But by that point, hopefully you've stalled enough time that your team can actually get out of spawn and their Uber's actually over and you get to establish positioning. But if you get to instantly clear traps on point at a moment's notice with the Uber, then suddenly that kind of gets thrown completely out of balance, and it becomes much, much easier to just cap while the other team is kiting. Now, of course, soldiers can knock traps on point, and teams are adjusted to potentially capping or potentially holding last while traps on point aren't great, but it's much harder to do so. And also, soldiers have to take some risk in doing that. Typically, they actually have to like get in or peek a door or something to that extent, versus, you know, a demo can just do it in the Uber and there's not really any risk associated, and it's going to thoroughly delete every sticky rather than just knock them around. So it makes pushing last way, way, way easier without a lot of really enjoyable counterplay from the other team. Your counterplay is basically just get better at holding last, I guess. I'm sure there might be like some more specific things you could end up doing if quickies were, you know, never banned and people were just told to adjust, which for some reason, like, some people have this idea of like just get used to it when, like, I don't know, if it doesn't really add anything and it's just kind of broken and the counterplay isn't fun and it just kind of unbalances the game in one way or the other, you don't have to include a weapon just for its own sake, I guess. But that is, again, kind of on that topic of the video I already made. So yeah, there isn't really that strong counterplay for holding your last against a quickies push, other than just have your soldiers are going to have to bomb earlier. You're just going to have to be better at holding last, I guess. And it really just makes things unbalanced such that, yeah, like there is... Pushing last with ad is already something that you, if you play your cards right, you should be winning that round. But it's still, the door is still open for so much defensive counterplay that ends up making holding last something that's not only feasible, but also like rewarding because you're doing something difficult, like as a team, right? Like you are outplaying the other team, and as a result, you get to hold your last. Versus quickies, it kind of throws out that balance a lot, and for that reason, in Europe, it is banned. In North America, there is not really any talks to ban it, and it is, of course, unbanned. But that's primarily just because no one really uses it. Yeah, North American demos tend to be very averse to the downsides of it and just not, they don't enjoy using the weapon. Plus, we just don't really have the same culture around using unlocks as Europe does. So if it started getting used a lot and abused a lot, and it started getting used to just cap last for free, then yeah, I would expect there to be some people talking about how stupid it is and how they want it banned. But for now, that's not the case. But yeah, that's kind of where Stickies, or excuse me, where Quickies stand. Man, my soldier is so trash, isn't it? That's kind of where Quickies stand. All right, to be fair, I am playing against talented players. But that's kind of where Quickies stand at. I really don't enjoy using them. I don't think they are worth using outside of pushing last. And yeah, it's like a neat gun for casual players. It's kind of a lot of people's intro into just playing Stickies in general, which I think is cool. And, you know, if you have fun with it, you have fun with it. That's totally fine. But in competitive, I don't really see the viability, even though some people do quite enjoy using it. More power to them, I suppose. And yeah, this is, you know, a matter of opinion still. Maybe they're actually good for reasons other than just pushing last, and I'm just a hater who doesn't know how to use it. But yeah, I definitely think stock is just better for pretty much everything except, of course, pushing last. But yeah, that's kind of the Quickies, you know, positives, negatives, where they're at in the metagame. And hopefully that was entertaining for those of you who, you know, might not play competitive and are just curious, like what, you know, a weapon like this that you don't really hear about, where it kind of finds its niche, etc. And yeah, hopefully it was entertaining. If not, hopefully it was a good sleep aid, as I know some of you use my videos for, which is chill. But yeah, I will see you guys later. Super long outro is over. Good night.